got issues unless they fixed it over the past couple of years. You've got the Learning Center where computers are here, where you can do the graphs. If you've done a graph and you're not quite sure whether you've done it correctly, please feel free to send it to me and with a line like, hey, could you check this over? If you just send me a graph without asking me to do anything, there's a possibility I'm going to look at it and go, oh, they're just handing the graph in. Now, when you hand the graph in, what I'm expecting you to hand in is this, and any graph is stapled onto it. If you want to opt to do it by hand, and I do not recommend this, I have had draftsmen in class before. It is impeccable work. I know what can be done. Computers, so much easier once you figure it out. But if you decide to do it by hand, I did include some graph on the paper on the back. Don't feel like you have to use this, especially if you're doing it by computer. I expect your graph to go along with your data. One of the mistakes I've seen on this is that the person does the graph, they have an intercept of say 5 on this one. Actually, it's the slope. Slope's the one that you deal with this. So they have a slope of 5. Someone else does it, and they had a slope. Someone else in the group did it. They had a slope of 4.3. They used the computer. 4.3 would be the correct one using proper analysis. And then the analysis person both used 4.3, even though one person had a graph with a slope of 5. No, if your graph is off and you get a slope of 5, and someone else got 4.3 in your group, I'm expecting the rest of your work to assume that what you did before was correct. So don't use your partner's answer just because you like it better. All right, all of your graphs will have the exact same title. And what title will that be? Well, the hint is given right here. Step number 5, plot a graph, bounce height versus drop height. Right there, that is the title. All of you will have the exact same title, bounce height versus drop height. Please do not change the spelling, do not change anything about that. If you want to drop the period after the S in versus, I'm fine with that. But other than that, that's exactly what it should look like. I don't think I can keep myself enough room. And then you'll have your axes here. Now, one of these axes represents bounce height, the other one represents drop height. The memory trick, which I like, is the fact that the word bounce height here is closest to this axis. This is the bounce axis. The other one is the drop. And if you're doing this by hand, please be a lot neater than this. So after the label, there's going to be a space followed in parentheses by the units, which I think is going to be centimeters for this lab. You will then have, I think it's 5 data points, which may or may not be somewhat linear, but I would hope they're somewhat linear. And then you'll have a line of best fit. Now, if you're using the computer to do it, it'll do it for you. You'll right click on one of the data points and you'll say add trend line, and it will beautifully do it for you. If you're doing it by hand, it is not a connect the dot exercise. You're picking a scatter plot with no lines, and then you add trend line. And again, this is in the lab orientation graphing, something clever like that. If you're using the computer, it will calculate the slope for you. Just check, there's a checkbox that says show equation. It's going to give you an equation. The thing that's in front of the X in what the computer tells you, that's the slope. So you have, if you're using Excel, it'll be something like y is equal to 4.37x plus 0.014, or we'll throw a 4 in there, 42. That number right there is the slope. That slope has units, even though the computer won't tell you the units, but the slope is rise over run, it's that unit divided by that unit. The vertical units divided by the horizontal units. Actually, in this lab, none of your slopes should be above 1. If you have a slope above 1, I suspect you flipped the axes. If you're using OpenOffice or LibreOffice, instead of giving you the equation like that, it'll probably do f of x is equal to 4.37x plus 0.142, something like that. If you've never seen the f of x notation, it's just called functional notation. You can treat it like a y. I'm not going to go into, since most of you will, hopefully all of you will use a computer for this. I don't need to get into some of the other nitty-gritty details, however, it should be in the orientation video. I did have a student a couple years ago that after they had done the lab, they were sort of talking about analysis questions. The student would come to me and ask how to do the graph on the computer. I would show the student how to do the graph on the computer. I would then occasionally the student would film it, and then the following week, the student would ask the exact same question again. Following week, the exact same question again. I would much rather be asked that question week after week and get graphs in that were done correctly than for you to be shy and ask once and then not ask again, even though you don't know how to do it. If you don't know, please ask. If you are like the typical class, some of you will get it after the first one, it'll be absolutely no problem. Some of you will struggle every week. I don't know why. As always, I blame childhood scars, but that's up to you. All right, questions up to here. All right. Got the meter sticks here, the bouncy balls, tape for taping meter sticks up against the wall. Please make sure it's the meter side or the metric side. Not metric, metric. Metric has got the finer detail. I think at this point, this is version 14 at this point, yeah, version 14, so a lot of the issues have been worked out. You've got this room to work in. You can go out into the hallway. So wherever you and your group want to go. I think we've got 21 in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, 21. So I'm picturing 7 groups of 3. I generally don't intervene in group selection, but I will. If we got somebody, if we got a solo person, I probably will try to get that person into a group, but I tend to just let you pick your own groups. And you will hear me say this many times. Don't forget, rejoice, because this is physics. All right? Proceed. Pick your groups. Oh, when you are done, please put equipment back where it's supposed to go. Usually it is not an issue, but occasionally there's just like this group thing, and I just get really mad when I'm having to clean up after most of the people in the room. And then I take it out on the next group, which is completely unfair. I generally apologize too, but I feel bad about myself and I feel bad about the next group. Just put things back. If you're not sure where it goes, because I have seen one person gets it for the group and someone else is putting it back, they're not quite sure where the first person got it, just ask. I think that's a running theme there. If in doubt, ask. Anyway, continue rejoicing.